John and Emily were a happy couple, or so it seemed. They had been married for 5 years and had 2 beautiful children together. But behind closed doors, John was leading a double life. He had met a woman named Sarah at work, and they had started an affair. John would tell Emily he was working late, but in reality, he was with Sarah. Emily trusted John completely and had no idea what was going on. She was busy taking care of their children and managing the household. As time went on, John was having an affair with a lady called Sarah. He would lie to Emily about his whereabouts and make excuses to see Sarah. One day, Emily discovered a text message on John's phone from Sarah. Her heart sank, and she felt like her world was crashing down around her. She confronted John, who denied everything at first. But eventually, he broke down and confessed to the affair. Emily was devastated. She didn't know if she could ever trust John again. She felt like their whole marriage had been a lie. John begged for forgiveness and promised to end the affair. But Emily needed time to think and figure out what she wanted to do. Emily decided to give John another chance. John promised not to cheat again. Despite his promise to Emily, John couldn't resist the temptation to continue his affair with Sarah. He told himself it was just one last time, but one last time turned into another, and another. Emily, on the other hand, thought they were working through their issues and rebuilding their marriage. She had forgiven John and was trying to move forward, but John's deceit continued. He would sneak around, lying to Emily about his whereabouts and meeting up with Sarah whenever he could. Sarah, too, had no intention of letting go of John. She had become addicted to the thrill of the affair and the attention John gave her. As the months went by, Emily began to notice strange behavior from John again. He was distant, and his excuses for working late seemed suspicious. One night, Emily decided to follow John. She tracked him to a hotel on the outskirts of town, where she saw him entering a room with Sarah. Her heart shattered into a million pieces. She couldn't believe John had broken his promise to her again. Emily confronted John, who was caught off guard. He begged for forgiveness. Emily, as a kind-hearted woman she is, forgave John again. Emily's friends were shocked and saddened by the news of John's infidelity. They rallied around her, offering support and advice. "Leave him, Emily," they said. "You deserve so much better than a cheater. Don't waste your time on someone who doesn't love you enough to be faithful." But Emily was torn. Despite John's betrayal, she still loved him. She remembered the good times, the laughter, and the adventures they had shared. She couldn't bring herself to give up on their marriage just yet. "I know he's made a mistake," Emily said, tears streaming down her face. "But I love him. I want to work through this, to see if we can salvage our marriage." Her friends looked at her with concern. "Emily, you're not thinking clearly," they said. "He's broken your trust. How can you ever trust him again?" But Emily was resolute. "I don't want to be the kind of person who gives up easily," she said. "I want to fight for our marriage, to see if we can make it work." Her friends sighed, knowing they couldn't change Emily's mind. "Okay, but be careful," they warned. "Don't let him hurt you again." Emily nodded, determination in her heart. She would try to make her marriage work, no matter what it took. Little did she know, John's infidelity was only the tip of the iceberg, and their marriage was about to face even more challenges. Emily's friends convinced her to confront Sarah, the woman who had been having an affair with John. They went to the office where Sarah worked, and Emily demanded to speak with her. Sarah, smug and confident, sauntered out to meet Emily. "What do you want?" she asked, eyeing Emily up and down. "You know exactly what I want," Emily said, her voice shaking with anger. "I want you to leave my husband alone. Stop seeing him, stop texting him, stop everything." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "And why should I do that?" "Because he's married," Emily said, her voice firm. "Because he has a family." "Because he doesn't belong to you," Sarah snorted. He doesn't belong to you either. He's made it clear he wants to be with me. Emily's eyes flashed with anger. That's not true. He's made a mistake, but he loves me. And I'm willing to work through this with him, Sarah sneered. You're delusional. He's never going to leave me for you. Emily took a step closer, her voice low and menacing. Listen to me, Sarah. I'm warning you. Leave my husband alone. If I find out you're still seeing him, there will be consequences. Sarah laughed, but Emily could see a flicker of fear in her eyes. I'm shaking in my boots, she said, but she took a step back, her confidence faltering. Emily turned and walked away, her head held high. She knew she had to be strong, for herself and her family. She wouldn't let Sarah destroy her marriage without a fight. In the break room, Sarah's friends were buzzing about the confrontation with Emily. Girl, you need to leave him alone, said one friend. He's not worth it, I know, right? Sarah replied. But I just can't help myself. I love him, her friends shook their heads. Love? He's married, Sarah. He's not going to leave his wife for you, Sarah sighed, knowing they were right. I know. It's just so hard to let go, but as she thought about Emily's words, she realized she was being selfish. She was hurting someone else's family, someone else's marriage, you know what? Sarah said, a newfound determination in her voice. I'm done. I'm going to leave him alone, her friends cheered. Relieved. Good for you, Sarah. You deserve so much better than someone else's husband, Sarah nodded, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. She was done with the drama, done with the sneaking around, done with the guilt. From that day on, Sarah distanced herself from John. She blocked his number, avoided him at work, and started focusing on her own life. It wasn't easy, but she knew it was the right thing to do. She was finally taking control of her life, finally letting go of the toxic relationship that had consumed her for so long. Despite losing Sarah, John didn't stop his philandering ways. In fact, he became even more brazen and reckless, seeking out new conquests and affairs. He started using dating apps, attending singles events, and even hitting on women at work. His behavior became increasingly erratic and selfish, causing tension and drama wherever he went. Emily, still trying to rebuild their marriage, was devastated by John's continued infidelity. She felt like she was losing him all over again, and she didn't know how much more she could take. John's friends and family tried to intervene, but he wouldn't listen. He was addicted to the thrill of the chase, the rush of adrenaline that came with each new affair. As John's behavior spiraled out of control, his relationships began to suffer. He lost friends, colleagues started to avoid him, but still, John couldn't stop. He was trapped in a cycle of selfish desire, unable to break free from the toxic patterns that had consumed him. One faithful day Emily visited her parents and told them what she has been passing through in the hands of John, his husband. Emily, sweetie, we understand that you still have feelings for John, but does he really worth it? Her father asked. He's broken your trust so many times. Can you really forgive him again? Emily nodded, her voice firm. I know it sounds crazy, but I still love him. I love the man he used to be, the man he could be again. And I want to hold on to that love, no matter how small it may seem. Her mother shook her head. But Emily, you deserve so much better than someone who can't be faithful. You deserve someone who will love and cherish you, not break your heart over and over again. Emily took a deep breath, trying to explain. I know you're right, Mom. But my heart doesn't care about what I deserve. My heart still loves John, flaws and all. And I need to follow my heart, no matter how hard it may be. Her parents sighed, knowing they couldn't change Emily's mind. They hugged her tight, tears in their eyes. We just want you to be happy, sweetie, her father said. If holding on to John is what makes you happy, then we'll support you. But please, be careful. Don't let him hurt you again." Emily nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. She knew she had made the right decision, no matter how hard it may be. She was going to hold on to her love for John, no matter what. In his quest for excitement and validation, John continued to engage in reckless behavior, attending parties and hooking up with random women. One night, at a party, he met a woman named Sophia. They hit it off immediately, and John was drawn to her wild and carefree spirit. They ended up leaving the party together, and John didn't use protection when they had sex. Weeks later, John started feeling unwell. He brushed it off as a flu, but the symptoms persisted. Finally, he went to the doctor, who ran some tests and delivered devastating news. John was HIV positive. John was stunned. He couldn't believe he had been so reckless and irresponsible. He thought back to Sophia, the woman he had met at the party. He realized he had never asked her about her HIV status, and he had never used protection. John felt a wave of fear and regret wash over him. He knew he had to tell Emily, but he was scared of her reaction. John's world was turned upside down. He had thought he was invincible, but now he was facing a life-altering diagnosis. He knew he had to make changes, to take responsibility for his actions and to prioritize his health and well-being. But for now, he was consumed by fear, regret, and uncertainty. John couldn't bring himself to tell Emily about his HIV diagnosis. He was ashamed, scared, and didn't know how to break the news. As the days went by, John became withdrawn and distant. Emily noticed the change in his behavior, but couldn't understand what was wrong. Unbeknownst to Emily, John's HIV diagnosis had already affected her. During their last intimate encounter, John had unknowingly transmitted the virus to her. Few weeks later, Emily started feeling unwell, experiencing symptoms like fatigue, fever, and swollen lymph nodes. She brushed it off as a minor illness, but deep down, she knew something was wrong. As her symptoms worsened, Emily went to the doctor, who ran some tests. The diagnosis shook her to her core. "Emily, my dear, according to tests carried out on body systems, I'm sorry to say this, you are HIV positive." Emily was devastated. She couldn't understand how this had happened. She had always been faithful to John, and she thought he had been faithful to her too. After their last fight over his cheating attitude, she left the hospital immediately and confronted John, who finally confessed to his infidelity and his HIV diagnosis. Emily felt like her world was crumbling around her. She was angry, hurt, and scared. She didn't know how to process this new reality. She felt like she was living in a nightmare. John was consumed by guilt and regret. He knew he had destroyed his marriage and put his wife's life at risk. Emily was furious and heartbroken. She packed her bags and left John's house, returning to her parents' home. "I can't believe he did this to me," she exclaimed, tears streaming down her face. "I thought he loved me, but I guess I was just a fool." Her parents listened to her story, their faces filled with shock and disappointment. "Emily, we warned you about John's ways," her mother said gently. "We told you he wasn't good enough for you, but you didn't listen." Emily nodded, feeling a mix of anger and shame. "I know, Mom. I was blind. But what can I do now?" Her father spoke up, his voice firm. "You need to go back to your husband's house, Emily. You need to face this situation head-on and figure out what you want to do next." Emily was taken aback. "But why? Why can't I just stay here with you guys?" Her mother's expression was stern. "Because, Emily, you need to bear your pain alone. You need to learn to deal with the consequences of your choices. We can't always be here to bail you out." Emily felt a pang of hurt, but deep down, she knew her parents were right. She couldn't run away from her problems forever. With a heavy heart, Emily returned to John's house, unsure of what the future held, but determined to face it head-on. Emily returned to John's house, feeling defeated and alone. She couldn't shake off the feeling that she had made a huge mistake by not listening to her friends and family. As she settled back into her husband's house, she couldn't help but think about how her life had turned out. She had thought that marrying John would bring her happiness, but now she felt trapped and miserable. She regretted not following her own instincts and listening to her own inner voice. She had ignored her own doubts and fears, and now she was paying the price. Emily felt like she was living in a prison, trapped in a loveless and toxic marriage. She longed for the freedom to make her own choices and live her own life. As the days went by, Emily became withdrawn and isolated. She stopped seeing her friends and family, unable to face them after ignoring their warnings. John, sensing her distance, tried to reach out to her, but Emily pushed him away. She couldn't bear the thought of being intimate with him, knowing that he had infected her with HIV. The marriage was now a sham, a mere facade of what it once was. Emily felt like she was just going through the motions, waiting for something to change, but deep down, she knew that she had the power to change her own life. She couldn't blame her friends and family forever. It was time for her to take responsibility for her own choices and create a new path forward.